You own a business, and have you ever thought of the day that you might want to do something besides own your business? There are a lot of options out there. You could turn the business over to management and sit back on the beach and enjoy Mai Tais and relax and let the business make money. Or you could sell it to your employees, possibly. Possibly there's somebody in your family that would take over the business. But quite often, one of the major options that a lot of people come into is deciding to go to the open market and confidentially, usually it's confidentially, or try to find the right buyer for your business to sell your business on the marketplace. So this is one more in a series that we generate for the people all over the world that own businesses on giving tips and ideas on how to get the best price for your business and find that right buyer. So this is how buyers see your business, and I'm trying to give a little bit of perspective in terms of the way when people go online initially to look at the businesses that they're going to see your business, or if not, immediately online after they get the first bit of information back from you, maybe, hopefully, after they signed a non-disclosure agreement. Now, why it's important is that there are a lot of businesses that people try to sell, and over time they go on the marketplace and they find that they really struggle. This Forbes magazine shows the more gloomy side of things out there, with 90% of listings may never sell. On the other hand, if you go to Exit Planning Institute, they show more like 70 to maybe 80% of the businesses that go on the marketplace just don't sell. Now, over time, you might lower your price and change things and find somebody, but quite often businesses really struggle if they're not properly prepared, and if you as a business owner have the wrong impression of how it's going to work and why it works, etc. It's one reason we say, hey, find a really good, caring, compassionate, and educated business intermediary, M&A person, business broker, depending on the size of the business that you've got, and get some support. It's well worth the money in most cases, especially if your option is not selling at all if you want to sell. Look, a lot of people go into the marketplace and they're looking at buying a business because they want to start up, not just start up or franchise up. And what I'm sharing with that is that, and I know when I got started in my business, I had 3 young kids under the age of 6 years old in my house. My wife decided that she would take time and watch over our family. And we really needed to make sure that we were going to make something work for us that gave us an income right away. Now, I happened to start up my business from scratch, but I'd already had about 12 years of building a database of individuals because of the job that I had before. So I was constantly in the world of transitioning ownership of businesses through Texaco and Shell oil companies, through companies that I worked with. And that gave me a basis to get my beginning. But on the other hand, if I had none of that and I had to think about maybe getting a franchise or maybe starting a business from scratch, I might really lean towards acquiring an existing business because we had home payments. We had to pay our mortgage. We had to pay car payments. We had to take care of diapers and nurseries and all kinds of training programs, etc. And a lot of families are in a spot where they don't really have the ability to guess when their startup or even their franchise is going to make money, and they just want to start up, which is something you do. Now, this is a really hard to read screen. I realize that. If you want to reach out to us, you can go to our website at BuyBizUSA. The information will be at the very end, and say, hey, can you send me that stupid slide? I couldn't read anything on it. But this is just an example of a business listing. It has information. I'm going to go through the 11 key things that I think a lot of people start to think about when they look at ads or they start thinking about businesses. Now, before we get into those, I'm going to talk about the 2 different things. There's seller's discretionary earnings and there's EBITDA. A lot of times we have in our heads that, hey, businesses like mine sell for some multiple of some number, right? And so the SDE is the owner benefit. That's all the money that you as an owner working your business are able to make, even if you are then spending some of that to minimize taxes by paying for a fancy car or paying a spouse that doesn't work in the business or doing depreciation, amortization, all that sort of stuff. But essentially, if you didn't want to pay for the fancy car and different write-offs like meals and entertainment and that sort of thing, that would be the money that you could take home. And EBITDA is sort of like that. It's just that, hey, what if you owned several locations doing the same thing? An individual could not be in all those locations, so it would be the money that they could make after paying a market valued or normal rated pay manager to run those businesses for them, and then whatever's remaining after that would be what they get. That's EBITDA. The other SDE is also referred to as owner benefit, and we're going to refer to SDE more often than not, but I just want to keep that in mind. so that you understand that a little bit. So one of the questions that people look at for the first time when they're looking at the ads, they're going to say, do the earnings justify the price? Is it, in this case, in this business, the people are looking for 400,000 and the adjusted net or the seller's discretionary earnings is 263, and that's less than 2 times earnings. Many businesses sell, when you talk about the multiple towards the owner benefit or seller's discretionary earnings, it falls between 2 and 3 times, and it can vary. It can be less, it can be more. That's just a generality. But this one sort of fits that guideline. So a lot of people probably look at this business going, well, if it's really making $263,592 last year, yeah, then 400,000 seems like a fairly reasonable price. Maybe I'd even be suspicious. Okay, so people are going to look at that. There's no single way to determine the value of a business, but a lot of times people are looking at those general multiples of earnings. Okay, the second thing they're going to look at is, do the earnings compared to the gross sales make sense? Now, in this case, they made 263 and they brought in a total revenue of 1.2 and change $1 million. So a lot of people are going to say, well, can a business make more than 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. And for many businesses, people become really guarded or suspicious when suddenly it's making 50% return and the rent is 12% of the gross sales. But don't worry, just buy my business. It's making $700,000 or $800,000 in profit, even though we're grossing $1 million. Okay, people are really suspicious. Make sure that the numbers you put down are both accurate and realistic, and then go to the marketplace and look at and get some help from somebody who can find the data if you don't have it at hand, and say, what do businesses like mine typically earn out of the gross sales? And if they typically earn 17 and you're making 20, you could say, hey, benefit, mine is actually better than average. On the other hand, if they typically make 17 and you're making 4, maybe you need to go back and relook at your numbers and look at your margins and do something to the business over the next 6 to 12 months, and maybe you could make more money out of the business. Maybe you don't even want to sell it after you do that. And then on the other hand, if you put some numbers together and all of a sudden you're making 67% profit and the average market is making 17%, realize that the marketplace is going to look at that going, well, why are you making such an incredibly large number? And in most cases, people are going to be suspicious and walk away from it. So just be aware. Look at that ratio of SDE or owner benefit or the total amount an owner can make to the gross sales and see if it makes sense. Okay, number 3, the reason for sale. People like to really know, hey, why are you getting out of this business if it's so darn great? They're going to ask you that over and over again. People hear that, business owners hear that question from people, and you got to have an answer. So retirement might be a real thing, but if you're 32 years old and you still have a lot of payments, retiring completely might not be it. Maybe you're just burned out. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're changing jobs. Or maybe the fact is that the market is changing and you're not comfortable with running the business in this industry. Maybe new competition's coming about. Now, you got to be careful about the negative stuff versus the positive stuff and try and put things in a truthful light always, but also in a positive light. So if changes in the marketplace are coming along and they're going to find out anyway, or if they ask you about it, be upfront. On the other hand, it's not a shame to say, hey, I'm just getting tired of doing this thing. I've done it for 14 years and I'm just climbing the walls. I'm ready to do something new. I loved it for the first 12 and a half, and lately I'm just ready to try to do something entirely different. I got a couple of different ideas. So make sure that the reason for selling makes a lot of sense, and be honest with people as best you can. Tell people your story. Okay, the people are also going to want to know, how many hours a week do you work in the business? And that's one of those curiosities, and realize that people are going to try to fill your shoes, and at first, for sure, they're probably going to take longer to do the things that you do. So if you're working only 5 hours a week, that's really, really great. And on the other hand, be aware that people are going to want to do what you do, realize they're going to spend more time, and it needs to be somewhat reasonable. They need an idea. Note that owner benefit is just one working owner. So if you are looking at all the money that you're earning out of the business, but you've got your wife or your husband and your children working in the business too, and you're calculating that as a total income, realize that the person that comes in is not going to have your spouse and your kids working for them and giving them the money. They're going to have to be replaced by a market level market rated salaries or hourly rates or whatever it is, and they're going to have to pay that. So that's going to change your income. So make sure you're calculating that accurately. Another thing they want to know is how long have you been in the business? So this one, the guy's been in for 25 years and they've owned it for 25 years. On the other hand, what if it was 25 years and you've been in there for 1 year? People are going to say, well, why, if it's so great, are you getting out after such a short period of time? That's a really important factor. Why you've been around, why you're getting out, and then those red herrings, like they might believe that you're just tired, but on the other hand, they're going to wonder, why, if it's such a great business, will you get out so quickly? Another thing is going to be non-compete. Be realistic. Here they're going to stay out of the business for a 100-mile radius for the next 10 years. And they're also going to provide training at a reasonable cost. We'll talk that in a second. But make sure that your distance and your time is reasonable. If you say you're burned out, tired, you're never going back into the business again, and you're only offering them 1 year where you're going to be out of the business and then you want the right to come back in, you got to really talk about that and help people feel comfortable, because why would you want such a short time period if you're really totally getting out of the business? That's going to be a tough sell. And the other factor you should look at is as how long of training you're going to provide in the business, and that's really important for people. Get an idea of what you think the average person might take to get their feet on the ground and get their head around the business. And some businesses might be a few days, some businesses might take a year, and it just might vary. Now, what I recommend is you come up with a time frame and you include the time frame and what you're in your mind, what you're being compensated for in the total price that you're asking. So if you're looking for $1 bazillion for your business and you think it takes 4 weeks to train the average person, at least get their basics down on that, then realize that $4 billion should really include the 4 weeks. On the other hand, if some people say, well, I feel really needy or really insecure, or I really want you around, then also think of an hourly or a daily or a weekly or a periodic rate of some sort of time that you would say, beyond this time period that comes with the business, I need to get compensated $500 a week, $1,000 a week, or what have you. And then describe what you plan to do. Maybe you're just being on the phone for an hour a day is going to be more than enough for them. Okay? If there's a license involved, how are you going to handle the license? Some businesses require specific licenses that require that somebody's had 4 years experience or 2 years experience. We do a lot of transition of licensed businesses, as an example, different construction type of companies. And a lot of times business people that are getting into owning a business don't have that experience. So are you going to hold the license for them? Do you know somebody that would be willing to hold the license for them? Know what the legal requirements are, be upfront. Don't wait till the last minute and then have them suddenly say, oh, wait, I have to have a license for this? I'm not qualified. I can't even buy this business. Be upfront and get some ideas in the near future. Maybe you're willing to hold the license. Maybe you don't want to hold the license. Maybe you know some guy that can handle the risk and is willing to do that sort of thing. Think through that process. Okay, the data source is really important. You'll see a lot of businesses on the internet today that are for sale, and a lot of times they don't even have really great records, or it's check me out or come hang in the business for 2 weeks. The higher quality of the reports that you're sharing with people to buy the business, the better off. So tax returns are usually primo. Profit and loss statements are also primo, but sometimes people are estimating the earnings, or they got to prove it to you, like, hey, stick around for a couple of weeks. Or maybe they've had a bad year for the last 5 years, but January looked good, and they're projecting that it's going to be every month here on out like January, and they want to get out while the going looks good, and they can project it. Again, the most confident things that people are going to ask are the tax returns and the profit loss statements, and they might even ask you to send a copy through the 4506T to the IRS. That's a form that is a request that says, hey, IRS, can you send a copy of what I've reported to you over the last several years? The expenses, they should be reasonable. And if you're doing add backs, like, hey, I'm paying my spouse, but my spouse doesn't work, and I buy a lot of stuff at Costco for the home, all that sort of stuff, you need to be able to help people really feel comfortable with those adjustments. Remember that seller's discretionary earnings is how much you earn in the business after not writing all the different things you can off, and it's very different from the bottom line that you're showing based on what you're going to pay taxes on. So you need to make people, if they're going to hand you a boatload of money, that you're showing a boatload of confidence in return on how you got to those numbers. Things like rent can get in the way of it, so make sure that you have enough options for people that people have. Is it reasonable? Is it eating too much of the the expenses? Do you have options that will go out for enough years that makes it attractive to people? If not, you can go negotiate that sometimes with the right person, but landlords are not likely going to sympathize. I used to be the decision maker for the as a landlord, essentially, for Texaco and for Shell, and people would pay $500,000 for a business, and after 4 months go, hey, I can't afford this $20,000 a month rent. Can you lower it? And we'd say, no, we're not going to lower our rent. You overpaid for the business. Go back to the guy that sold the business, or figure out something else and become more profitable. People need to do their research. Realize that the SBA is a really great way for financing a business, but that most people in America today look to buy a business with money down. I mean, in your neighborhood, maybe you're different. Maybe you're unique and wrote a check for all cash for the house that you live in. But in most cases, people finance houses. In most cases, people finance cars. So certainly in most cases, people are going to finance businesses. In fact, businesses tend to be quite often worth more than the car that they drive, and quite often more than the house that they live in. So you think about it, a lot of times business owners have to think through, do they want to do the risk of financing the business for the buyer? Sometimes you don't have any other option, and you can say, well, I want $1 bazillion all cash, and I'm going to sit here and wait. That's one reason businesses are in that 70 to 90% never sold rate, because that's unrealistic based on the market conditions. Every once in a while, somebody comes up with $1 bazillion in their back pocket. But think about the person. Imagine a person that has $1 million and you want $1 million for your business. This is just an example. Maybe your business is worth $1 million, but they have $1 million and they want the best business they can buy. So they might say, well, I'll give you 200,000 of it and I'll finance it through the SBA if it's qualifiable. If not, you're going to finance it. And you might say, no, I don't want to do that. But that person with $1 million say, well, I'm willing to invest $1 million, but if I'm going to spend all $1 million, I'm going to buy a $5 million business that's giving me a whole lot more return than your business, because I like financing and leveraging my money, and I want to feel good about my investment. So keep in mind that you might be called on to think about financing some of the business, and I know almost everybody listening to this is really getting really turned off. Or get your act together, your records together, so you can get it pre-qualified with a business. Remember, people like to start up, and they're out there to buy an existing business that's good, but they're going to look at it through their lenses, and you need to keep in mind how they're seeing the business. If you want to reach out to me, we have a great philosophy. I love what I do. I love the clients I work with. We have a lot of different sayings in our company. One of them is, when you sell a business, you share a legacy. Our company is actually Legacy Venture Group. I'm sharing the website because it's easy to remember, BuyBizUSA.com. And you can go to the website, you can find my contact information, reach out to me and say, hey, Brian, talk slower, give me a different subject. I think you're wrong about whatever. Could you help me out? Whatever. I love reaching out to other people. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Facebook by putting the BuyBizUSA in there. And if you want to type in BuyBizUSA to the text number 22828, we'll get your contact information and even send you our free ebook on successfully selling your business in this current year. All right, that's all I've got for you. I hope I've done well enough to keep you interested and motivated. Sorry to take so long, but I've got a lot of valuable information and I love what I do. So if you want to, this is Brian Stevens with BuyBizUSA and the Legacy Venture Group, where we sell America's best businesses. Good luck. Bye-bye.